Hello everyone, this is Grandmaster SP Sethuraman and I'm going to present you the Classical Sicilian chess based course. And let me introduce myself before going ahead with the chapters, introduction and overview and all those stuff. So I became a Grandmaster in the year 2010 and I had a peak rating of 2672. Worked with many legendary players as a second, and as well, of course, part of the bronze winning Indian team in the Olympia 2014, 2 times national champion, former Asian champion, and a lot of medals for India. So I have made a couple of opening courses as well for other entities, and I'm very happy to make one for chess base. That will be the Classical Sicilian. Recently, I have added this opening into my repertoire, and it is more fighting, and I like the character um, of the positions, arising positions, and hence I thought why not to present it to you guys, the viewers. So let's go to the introduction chapter. So this is the starting position of the Classical Sicilian, and I like this for a couple of reasons. Here, of course, we are in the crossroads of the open Sicilian, and black has many choices to make. The famous knight off is the most common played move here, that is a6, and other moves are like, if black wants to play dragon, then g6 is the move. Then of course e6 leads to a different kind of scavenging type of positions, and there comes the fourth option, that is the Classical Sicilian, which will be presented in the course. So like I mentioned, I like the Classical Sicilian more because it is flexible and versatile, as we can then decide how to place our pawns. In some of the lines, we go g6, in some of the lines we go e6, and in some of the lines we can also prefer e6, e5, e6, and so on. So the flexibility nature adds a lot of strength to this opening. And one more point is that we can also get the same position from the move order of knight c6. So we can get it in two ways, d4, cd4, knight d4, knight f6, knight c3, and d6. Obviously, the second move, knight c6, to play knight c6, you have to know the Rossolimo as well. This is one thing. And but we avoid some other lines, like for example in d6, white can play here f3, which we avoid by the knight c6 move order, or for example bishop b5 check, the Moscow variation, we can which also can be avoided by playing knight c6. Obviously, for that you need to know Rossolimo, which leads to another story. But just I wanted to highlight the fact that we can reach the same position by different move orders, and it also adds up to the plus point of this opening. And so let's go to the position of knight c3, knight c6. And as you can see, immediately we pressurize the knight on d4 by developing our knight to c6 and confront it. So here white has a couple of options, which we'll be looking, of course, in greater depth in the coming chapters. Before going ahead, I would like to pinpoint also that many top players recently use it in their arsenal for getting fighting chances against low-rated opponents, be it low-rated opponents, or even to get an uncompromising position against high-rated opponents. So this opening can be used, and some experts like Gelfand, Boris Gelfand, legendary player Boris Gelfand, and the youngsters like Paha Maksudlu, Tabatabai, and the US champion, former US champion Sam Shanklin, employ it quite often recently, in recent times. So adding a flavor to the opening. And of course, in the 1990s, Kramnik used it heavily, and that's how it became popular. The Classical Sicilian became really popular. Whatever Kramnik touches, it turns into gold. So like, for example, Berlin and the Classical Sicilian as well. So this is some short history about the opening. And what are white's options here? So white can play bishop g5, which is the most challenging move, or other options like bishop e3, g3, h3, bishop e2, bishop c4, and f3, and so on. So compared to the knight off, I must say that against the classical Sicilian, there is a very few challenging moves. Although now we have checked there are many responses from white, it is not so ambitious and it does not put so much of pressure and challenge. Only certain moves like, for example, bishop g5 or bishop c4 is critical compared to the other lines. But in knight off, you can see there are so many lines and theories developed so extensively. Sometimes it can go up to even move 40 and you have to memorize some stuff, and the positions are ultra sharp and heavily computer based, and that is what I like about the classical Sicilian, which differs from the knight off, that it is more about schematic structures. But of course it is uncompromising and it is not objectively sound like the knight off. But on the other hand, we get a lot of interesting positions, unbalanced positions, and it's more fighting, I would say, less theoretical than the knight off for sure. And also it reduces the options for the white players. As I said, there are only main two challenging moves like bishop g5 and bishop c4. But for instance, in knight off, there is English attack with bishop e3, bishop g5, bishop e3, and bishop e2 as well is slightly more popular now. And also of all the stuff like h4, and you have to know every line in and out, which is not the case in the classical Sicilian. And that's also one of the reasons I have a small liking towards this compared to the knight off. And when I play it also, I experience a lot of joy because I cut down a lot of heavy theoretical stuff. And yeah, so now let's look at the options of for the white side. So let's go one by one. For example, bishop e3 is already not so great because of knight g4, and white is not able to set up English attack with, for example, f3, queen d2. So knight g4 already neutralizes the line, so nothing much to really explain about this move. Of course, we'll see in detail in the forthcoming chapters. And g3 will be met by g6 in dragon style, since white has preferred the calm way and he's not going for long castle, so we can already put our bishop on g7, not to worry about long castle in h4. For example, bishop e3, queen d2, long castle, and h4, h5 stuff. Sorry. So we can base our setup with the bishop to g7. And for h3, we go e5, which is a different character fight again. Here, g6 will be met by g4. Of course, it's completely possible, but we refrain from the dragon setup whenever white has the option of castling long and attacking on the king side comfortably. So that's why I have prescribed the move e5 here in the course. And after bishop e2 as well, we go for e5. Once again, this is completely possible, but like I mentioned, white castles long and it is a different story. So bishop e2, e5 is the prescribed move again. And for f3, we also play e5. f3 is one of the critical lines apart from bishop g5 and bishop c4 on move 6, aiming for an English attack with bishop e3, queen d2, and then we react with e5, knight b3, bishop e6, preparing d5. And of course, once again, we'll extensively analyze it in the coming chapters. So then comes, bishop c4 before we go move ahead to bishop g5. So bishop g4 is another option which is getting immensely popular in recent times. This is the point of placing the bishop to c4 so that it directs towards our king. And here I suggest a direction of queen b6, which is very interesting, pushing the knight back. e6 is the most common response to bishop c4, and white gets his desired setup of his pieces with bishop e3, queen e2, long castle, and he goes for g4 and all those stuff. So I don't like that option of allowing white to comfortably develop his pieces. That's why I probed into the move queen b6, which is very interesting, and once again we'll check it in greater depth. So the last option, which is the most challenging option, is bishop g5. So whenever I prepare the classical Sicilian for a tournament game, most of my opponents play this move automatically, and it is really on the top tier list. So if you are ready for the bishop g5, then half of the problems all solved. So what is the point of bishop g5? Of course, it pressurizes the knight on f6 and does not allow us from imposing the dragon setup with g6, bishop g7, because of the obvious reasons like white can take on f6 and shatter our pawn structure. So we go e6, and once again it leads to a very interesting type of pawn structures, and our basic setup is to play a6 and then bishop e7, bishop d7, and go for b5. And in some lines, white will take on f6 and we'll be forced to take with a g pawn, leading to a different setup of pawn structure where we double our pawn on the f file, and in the majority of the cases our king will remain in the center. But on the other hand, we get some other advantages like the double bishop and the flexible rigid pawn structure. But of course we have to be brave because our king will be in the center and the safety is slightly compromised, but we have other advantages, and of course when we discuss it in the chapters, you'll feel more comfortable about the ensuing positions. So this is a small introduction about what will be presented in the course. So as we move further, we'll go in greater depth of how to form our pieces, how to formulate our ideas, and so on. And yeah, so stay tuned, and a lot of information is coming in the coming chapters. You will enjoy it, and of course when you finish the course, you will have a feeling that I'll be ready to play the classical Sicilian. And yeah, thank you.